So we're starting 5 minutes earlier. We want to get fast time to insights and market value. So we'll start before everyone else. My name is Gil Raviv. You may know me. How many of you are familiar with datachamp.com? Yeah, great. I'm not very successful. No, it's a good thing because I thought probably only readers of my blog will arrive, but I'll try. So 3 years ago, I was a senior program manager in Excel team, Microsoft Excel, developing the Excel 2016. Now, I'm not sure, I'm sorry for using my nationality. I come from Israel, and Israel is a kind of, we call ourselves startup nation, and we have all kinds of young people going out of college and think that they can conquer the world, and they start their own startups in high-tech and many elements that are all around innovation, and it's a kind of a culture, and we are not used so much to big organizations and to do things by the book. We try to get shortcuts, but just because we want to be more significant and to contribute more to where we belong to. So when we joined Excel team, 50 engineers that are crazy like me, and you get a source code that was developed for over 30 years, and you need to create the new features of Excel 2016 that will be released and be used by a billion users all around the world. It's a kind of something that you may be overwhelmed. And we were lucky because usually in Microsoft, the good things happen in headquarters, right? But fortunately for us, the entire Excel and Office team developed mobile stories and mobile support for all across the Office products. So a bunch of 50 Israeli guys were responsible for Excel 2016, while all the others are doing the important things to support Office cross-platform, which was a great opportunity for us because we got some amazing experiences to work on a software that millions of users are working on. So that is why I am here. While I was working on Excel, I helped to integrate Power Query inside Excel 2016. So now when you click on Excel in the data ribbon in Excel 2016, and you see there all the get data experiences, I worked with the Power BI team to integrate that scenarios in Excel 2016. There are many things there. It's not only an add-in anymore, but I will not waste your time on this story. I also have 17 years of experience in software development, so I came from waterfall development through agile and Scrum and working on many innovations in the high-tech industry in Israel. But when I moved to Excel, I finally realized for many years I was a data analyst and data consumer, and I didn't even know that. So yeah, I didn't use SQL Server and SSAS, and I don't know MDX, but it was always data and pivot tables and many things which now suddenly in Excel I found so many people that's the real job, and it was amazing to be in that specific situation, and decided to switch from software development to consulting and work with people in self-service BI projects. Now, I'm a group manager in Avanade. We do a lot of self-service BI projects, but mainly bigger projects to do digital transformation for companies, 30,000 employees, a joint venture by Accenture and Microsoft. And some of the things that you will see here are also real techniques that were used for real clients without the real data, of course. Okay? So let's start. So for me, and this is a personal question which you may now can answer. The key important thing with Power BI, which making me come and wake up so passionate, is one important thing, and that's innovation. The fact that you can use the tool, and you can use the tool, let's just skip this one, you can use the same tool for many different scenarios. Whether you are centralized BI team that now are considering to move to modern reporting technologies, or whether you are a single information worker in your organization that is doing magic in your Excel files, the same tools can be used. So how many of you are familiar with analyzing Excel capability in Power BI? Okay, great. So we'll show it in a second, just very briefly, to explain why it's so important in my mind. So we are starting the journey with innovation and in a bottom-up approach. You probably are familiar with the term grassroots innovation. Many companies are now starting to empower their employees, individuals, people, and talent in their organization to think about new ideas to bring more value to the company. And we can do the same with data. Data is not only something that you need to support others, it's something that you can use as a resource that can yield innovation. And in our case specifically, it starts actually with Excel, because Excel is the single most used data source that you have out there, right? So if you are coming from sales, you usually you use a lot of funnel charts to understand, to explain your pipeline in terms of your sales revenue. But consider now either if you are a Power BI champion, or whether you want to change and transform your data governance in your organization. Let's just leave for a minute the single source of truth challenge for a second, though we have great solutions in Power BI for that. But imagine now, even though that you have 1 million workbooks in your organization, used by many individuals, and these are all copied of all kinds of versions of the truth, and perhaps it can be even considered as fake news by some. Everything there, each single file is an opportunity for innovation. It may not provide you the insight that you need for your organization, but it's like an evolution. Every cell will mutate. Some of the cells that will be strong will survive. Eventually, you can evolve your data and the data culture in your organization to yield much more insight at the bottom. So in this example, we have, in a big organization, perhaps 1 million workbooks. Imagine what you can do if you will establish a kind of a culture that will allow the great workbooks that are used out there eventually to transcend into the next level, used by teams and then used by the entire organization. And everything now is Power BI, because you have also Power BI in your Excel file, right? So let's just see a quick demo why everything can start at the bottom of the funnel, at the top level of the funnel with the Excel workbooks, why Power BI is so uniquely different than all the other tools, and it's all related to the integration story with Excel. Okay, so I have here, let's open my browser just a second. So here I have in my demo workspace on powerbi.com, I have a report that runs on a scheduled refresh, comparing the Facebook shares between Tableau and Power BI. This is just a quick example. And now, as a data analyst, the fact that I can go, and I'm doing this demo now for those of you who are not familiar with the analyzing Excel, I can now go and select the specific data set and click here on Analyze in Excel. And an ODC file, for those of you who are Excel users, an ODC file, it's an Excel workbook connection file. When I just open this file, I just get an Excel with a workbook connection that goes directly to the data set on powerbi.com. So now I can distribute this Excel file to many analysts in my organization. All of them will use the single source of truth and can build amazing reports in the old-fashioned way with Excel. Okay, so you see, I open the Odyssey file, I have a pivot table, and I can just now start dragging all kinds of values to demonstrate the capabilities of the Excel file using the external data connection. And just as an example, here is something that I prepared in advance that is actually connected. You can see if I will click here in the data, queries and connections, which is a great new feature in Excel 2016. You can see in the connections that I have a connection directly to the dataset in Power BI. So now, as a centralized BI team, you can also support many Excel users and distribute those Excel templates to them. They will always use the dataset that you can control, which is a very important thing. Now, on the other end, imagine if I am, let's open another Excel file. Imagine that I am now just an individual in the organization, but I am an Excel power user, and I also know the latest and greatest thing in Excel, and I build some reports, and my only consumer is my boss. But some of you who are somewhere in centralized team in your organization may be able to find opportunities to take my Excel file and deploy it on powerbi.com. And there are many ways to do that. You can just get the report and put it on Power BI. It will be in a single frame as if it is Excel Online, and you can use it in dashboards. But also, as a developer, let's say I am sending you the Excel file, and now you want to develop the same report on Power BI. All you need to do, and let's just take an example. Just a second. So here I have, this is my Excel file. So you can see when I've built it as an information worker who is expert in Excel, I've built it using the new, just a second, you see the new Power Query capabilities. Here, everything is using Power Query. If you're not familiar with Power Query, that's fine. But what I'm trying to say is now if I will open a Power BI, a new Power BI desktop, and let's close this one just for a second. So now, as a centralized team member, I get that amazing workbook that I found, which was relatively anonymous for my organization, and I want to use the same technologies, the same techniques that were used here. So now, all I need to do is go to File, click Import, select the specific Excel file. Let's select the file itself. Okay. And now Power BI will not just copy-paste the data. It will copy the entire data model and queries that were built in the new modern Excel technologies, which were actually Power BI. These are the same tools all over the place on all the different endpoint solutions. So now you can see with a single click, I have a report with the data model that was created in Excel. Now it was migrated to Power BI. And now I can deploy it in powerbi.com. And by the way, with the new Power BI Premium and the capacity units, even if this specific scenario will have billions of rows, perhaps now you don't have the billions of rows because that guy filtered things, he edited in an Excel file, so he didn't have a very large file. But now we can turn the filter off and use the same report for across the company for different teams and use the premium capacity to provision the report. So I didn't need to pay for developers, for SQL Server developers, for SSAS developers, for ETL developers. A single expert in Excel with Power Query and Power Pivot did all the job for us as a company. So it's a good scenario where you can use talent in Excel and talent in Power BI to scale up projects. Okay, let's move on to the next part. So we saw some integration, deep integration with Excel and why they have lots of potential to bring new innovation to you. And now let's very briefly talk about why innovation is so important in terms of insight. So you can think about innovation in two ways. The first element is your company is all about making, being successful in your business. And the way to do that is to be better and to be the number one in your competition. And the way to do that is to innovate. Now, to innovate, you better also use insights and make data-driven decisions to arrive to the point where you can innovate based on the data. So whenever you are using data as part of your innovation approach, it is something that can bring you more value. So use Power BI when, let's say you have an innovation team that is doing all kinds of projects, you should include also data-driven activity as part of that innovation project. And Power BI is the great tool for that because it allows you to input data from the web. The thing that you see with the Facebook was something that I could do in 2 hours of work. So Power BI champions, as now I call them Power BI data catalysts in the organization, these guys can really create rapid prototyping for you that will support your innovation in your organization, which is very, very important tool. Instead of writing mockups in PowerPoint or in all kinds of tools, just mock up everything in Power BI. The next thing, which is probably more important for data governance, is that you can now consider the process from gaining the data, preparing it, modeling it, creating the analysis, share it with colleagues. You can see it as a process that you can introduce innovative approaches to reduce the time to insight. Because eventually, every activity which is about business intelligence is around the potential to gain insight. There is nothing, it's not important just to follow KPIs, right? The real value is to find new insights from your data. So if you can find innovative ways to reduce the time and increase the chance for insight, it is something that can be very helpful for you. So we'll discuss now what are the techniques that we have in Power BI to reduce time for insight. Okay? So again, consider Power BI as a funnel. You start with data preparation, data gathering. You can combine data from multiple sources. Then you need to start to create a model that will make some business logic around the different tables that you have to build relationships. If you are using Excel, usually you do lots of VLOOKUPs in that stage and create all kinds of formulas that are relevant for your business. And then you are starting to build the visuals. Now, on each step in the way, there is a chance for insight. The report author can make an insight. Then the consumer can make insight. Then the executives in the big meeting rooms can make insight. Everywhere there is a chance for insights. But all of us can start looking at it as a kind of a funnel where we can try to find ways to improve the chances for insight. And to do that, you can see all those green circles that we have. Power BI has many different features that can help you on each step in the funnel to gain better opportunity for an insight. Okay? Just as an example, and this is relatively easy, we have quick insights, right? So quick insight and insight, it looks the same. We can do that to gain insights. But even things like Q&A, even if you don't use the feature for your executives because they don't know what to ask, perhaps you can use the Q&A in all kinds of brainstorming sessions to help people understand more and perhaps get some unexpected idea by communicating, by collaborating. So any collaboration between people around the data can improve the success for an innovation and insight. So let's just not use that for brainstorming about innovation. Let's do brainstorming about insights. And that's a great tool to achieve all those elements. Now, a bit about data culture. So we'll discuss now some personas that we have in the organization. It's relatively straightforward. We can have a sad or happy CEO, and we can have sad or happy IT, and also sad or happy analysts. And we have also the keys to our kingdom, to our data sources, databases, etc. Now, before Power BI, we just had the typical centralized BI challenge, okay? You can see in this slide, most of the guys there are very sad, and there is almost zero insight. Why? Because everything is controlled by a centralized team. IT controls everything, and IT is also doing the development. So later on, we'll talk a bit about waterfall perspective and the new way to do things in Power BI. And everyone is sad because things are getting very, very slow, and no one can really, the chances for insight, like in innovation and like creating a funnel, you need quantity. You need evolution of many, many cells that will mutate, and some of them will adapt to the environment. And you cannot do that when a single team controls the data, because there is no opportunity to some unexpected mutation that will lead to that innovation and evolution. Then self-service BI was introduced, right? So yeah, great. We have some happy people there, and there is some of the self-service BI experts can also got a promotion because they got a very nice Power BI report that showed something, and the C-level executives also saw that report, which was nice for few people in the organization, but still, it's a problem because we have many, many people that access the same data, and there is an explosion of data that is reported without the top-down approach where the centralized BI team should take accountability and responsibility to take all those specific single isolated reports as an opportunity and to try to do a data governance around those. And again, when you take the centralized approach that take both bottom-up approach and top-down, you can take the benefit of all those clones of truth to use them as the kind of candidates for the evolution for insight. So that's why Power BI with all the capabilities is very important. Okay? Now, very quickly about waterfall and agile. So how many of you were developed software in agile and waterfall? Okay. So it's relatively clear, right? You have big data in your organization, and your managers, your executive team wants specific insights and KPI. No one really understands what exactly they want. It's a very strategic level thinking, but someone needs somehow to translate all those strategies into tactics and into technical requirements, and then to build a reporting solution. How much time will it take to build it? 2 years. 2 years. It makes sense. We have requirement gathering. We need to recruit all the people that will work on that specific element. We have huge architecture that we need to apply. And then when the project ends, the requirement is changed, right? Now, sometimes it's not even the requirement that is changing. We are changing as individuals, and the experience that we require is different over time. And the fact that we developed a tool without gaining feedbacks from the audience, it's not something that we can now use, because when you measure, if you will take any project that you have in your organization using waterfall, and you will measure the engagement of those products, you will probably see 90% failure. And that's a number that I didn't test, but I've never seen a reporting project that is really successful when it is measured by its engagement and by the satisfaction from the consumers. The consumers should feel happy. They should feel happy, right? They need to gain insights. If I will go waiting 3 seconds, drinking my coffee. This is not something that I can now find any meaningful results from the data, right? And no one on that 2-year project was thinking about me and my experience and making me be able to immerse into the data and ask questions and get answers fast. So again, moving from waterfall to agile world, it doesn't matter which agile methodology you use. It's important that you use, if you are considering using Power BI, build fast prototypes and make fast iterations. And the most important thing is we call it sprints. From sprint number 1, there is a delivery to the client. It shouldn't be nice. You don't need the colors and the visuals, but it must have real data, and users start using this solution to get feedbacks. Okay? So that's something that we used. I'm using it even a lot when I come to Power BI projects. It's a kind of a combination between the old way and the new way, because we still want to be relatively organized and not to send to C-level some prototype that perhaps is using data in an incorrect way. Ideally, and again, you can see a funnel here. We start perhaps with a 1-week, 2-week project converting all kinds of Excel files into Power BI reports and starting sharing those reports with our audience. Now, as we call those reports prototypes, they are only shared, and you can see here, they are only shared by individual key stakeholders. But we are using real data, nothing fake. If it's not real data, the audience will not give you any input which is significant, only real data. Then the prototypes, it's like an evolution. Some of the prototypes are bad, some are good, some needs much more work to be better, to be more mature. So some of them will move to the next part where they will become pilots. So each report in Power BI or each dashboard or each workspace, it doesn't matter how you use the actual technicalities. Each specific element can be now used as a pilot. Now, the difference between a pilot and a prototype is that the pilot is basically in real, the laser is not working, I'm shooting. It's based on real context, which means it's not only real data. It's now the decision makers or a small team that is doing some decision making or some ideas around the data on a daily basis or a weekly basis. They should now start using those prototypes. So it's not it's a real environment. It's not only real data. It's a real live context. This is where they are making their decisions or thinking about their data, and now they are starting using our own 2 weeks developed reports. They shouldn't replace the old reports that they use, but they can start using that on their everyday life without being a production-ready report. But it allows us to gain real, unbiased feedback from our clients, and they will start knowing that each iteration, they gain more capabilities and more features. So now, instead of a 2-year project, we are starting from the actual results. In 2 years, perhaps we will need to develop all the advanced analytics and the data warehouse and to scale it up. And by the way, now there is a scale-up potential doing everything from Power BI with the Power BI Premium and capacity plans. But the potential now is much better because we're starting to bring value from day 1 or from week number 1 to that project. Okay. So this is relatively straightforward. So now when we take the top-down approach and you have many, many Excel files and also some like dozens of Power BI reports that are used by teams in your organization, the question is which report you pick for a candidate for some corporate level reporting. And again, it's relatively easy to take the work, refine it a bit, perhaps improve the measures in DAX, and then share it with wider population, but which one to use? So for that, we have the recently announced usage metrics reports. How many of you have heard about the usage metrics in Power BI? It was announced, I think, last week. OK, so just to show you very, very quickly. So again, the idea, don't measure success by executive that say, oh, that was great. Measure success by the engagement of the solution itself. Because it's not only someone that gives you the paycheck, though this is probably important. It's also about the engagement of the product. With engagement, the evolution can start, because eventually everything is about quantity. You need lots of quantity to identify the quality pieces in that equation of the funnel. So let's now show you a great example of a usage report. So you can see here in this specific Power BI environment, if I click on one of those reports, let's take, for example, the Facebook dashboard, I can now click here on the usage metric reports. And now Power BI gets all the logs from their Azure environment with all the actual data from users that reviewed the reports online. So I can now, and let's see if it works, view usage metrics. You will not see a lot of data here because this is my private demonstration. And you can see here an example of a report that was created for us. And then this report shows us how many people reviewed, consumed that specific report. Now, this is a bit boring for a centralized team, right? You have 500 Power BI reports that you are managing in your organization. You want to select 10 for the next innovation project. So the level of engagement and the number of views is relatively crucial for you to make the decision. So for that, we also have the capability to just create that report in Power BI desktop. Let me just show it to you. Unfortunately, I cannot share it because when you use Power BI to get data from usage, that report is connected to my Power BI, and if I will share it with you, you cannot edit it at this stage. So the entire report should be created for a single tenant in mind. So here, this example is another report that I showed on my blog. So you can see there is better activity. And in this report, I just turned off the filter that shows a single report. So now I'm measuring the engagement of the entire reports that I have in this workspace. Okay? You can see here in this specific element. Okay? So these are actual reports, actual report names that I have, and these are actual pages in those reports that I have. So I can also measure some engagement on specific reports. So let's say if I have a third page in a report is very significant for me, and I think that's important for the audience to examine that third page. This is a great way for me to measure the engagement, because perhaps I need to change the position of that page to be the first because it's more important, and it's a way for me to measure its engagement. So just a very quick, sorry, what happened here? Just a very quick demonstration how you can create that specific report. All you need to do, just a second. So if you will open a new Power BI desktop, let's give it some time. And now you just click Get Data, and you go to Online Services. You see that you have the Power BI service. By the way, this is a great feature also because now you can separate the teams. Experts that know how to prepare the data and to create great models will work on the data set, and then use all your visual experts to start Power BI reports that connects directly to Power BI.com, to the data sets that were built by your modelers and data wranglers. So it's a great functionality that was introduced in May. So now when I click the Power BI service, you will see in a second. Come on. Okay, now I can select the workspace. And if I will search for usage, you see that I have two data sets, one for the dashboard usage, another for the report usage. So now using this Power Query experience inside Power BI, you can start building data. So it's actually not Power Query, only this specific dialog in Power Query allows you to select which report you want to use, whether dashboard or report, and to measure the entire workspace, number of viewers, unique viewers, number of views, and there is a plan in the future also to actually include usernames. So, and probably that will be governed by the administrators of Power BI. So you can choose if you want to share this capability or not, but you will be able to see new users, churn rate of your reports, and many interesting things because all the data is going to be available soon. Okay. Any questions? Yes. Yes. Yes, and I also think that you have a lookup table there that shows you the type. I think so. I think. Yes. The usage, good question. I'm not sure at this stage, but probably it will be available. I'm sure that the data is there. It's only the making it available is where the challenge may be. I think in Power BI, in the reporting server, you probably have other capability to just collect all the logs and audits and do whatever you want. Okay. Let's continue. So we talked about the usage metric report, and now let's talk about the most important thing. So we talked about a governance approach, and not just to control the data, but to really to expedite the opportunities to gain more insights and faster time to insight. And to do that, you need a kind of organization and data culture that allows each level in the organization to communicate with its upper and bottom layers, and to really to be able to extract those reports from the bottom, and also to create reports as a centralized team and make sure that is adopted by many teams in the organization. So it's a bottom-up, top-down approaches that should be converged together. And the thing which is really important, how can you make all the decisions and all the work and all the promotion of knowledge in all those specific junctions in the organization? And the answer is, what you need? We need you. We need people like you to be recruited like there is no tomorrow. And we need many of people that will be able to make the decisions, to help the teams, to identify Excel workbooks that that can have more value, to refine and optimize some of the solutions if needed, but eventually to help both the centralized teams to create their own solutions, but also to identify great candidates for such solutions as part of the grassroots approach. So what it takes to become a data innovation catalyst, okay? What you need to be a data innovation catalyst. And to my mind, what's the difference between just a Power BI expert or Power BI champion to a data innovation catalyst? The only difference is the passion and the motivation for you as individuals to make the difference. So you are not only technical experts that know how to create DAX and Power Query and Power Pivot or whatever it means. You are seeking opportunities for new insights. Every new report that you see, you don't need to be subject matter expert in that specific domain, but as someone that have the tools to work on this reporting solution and with the mindset to seek innovation and to be a catalyst, that's the real difference. And that's where you have many opportunities as individuals to bring much more value. So what we are going to do now very quickly, show you some examples of tools that allows you in Power BI that allows you as experts to bring more value to the table, okay? Just a quick note for those of you who are thinking about data governance project. Microsoft published a great white paper that allows you to read more about data governance opportunities. There is a specific section there about Power BI champions, and the main added value that you gain from the thinking that we do today is that it's not just the governance part, it's about the evolution to gain much more insight in your organization. So it's not only the expertise, it's the passion and the capability and motivation by those individuals to make significant value. Okay, so some of the toolkits that we will show you now. Let's go over them very quickly. The first one is custom visuals. So some of the organizations have some policies. Custom visual is dangerous. Perhaps it was developed by third parties, so we are not sure we can use them. But at least in a sandbox environment, when you just want to innovate new projects and gain some insights from your data, I think that the value of custom visuals is great because it's not just bring you the opportunity to show something sexy to some executives. It's another angle to your data. So what I'm usually doing when I have data and I know what I understand from the data, but I'm seeking a new angle, I'm opening this specific custom visual that I created because it allows me a better navigation. And I am searching, and you can do that also in Office Store with the custom visuals. And I'm just looking for, just as an example, I can filter it by everything which is only supporting R, the R visuals. So now I see all those little pictures. I know this is not the actual custom visuals, only like a logo or an image of them, but it brings me some ideas. Oh, I can try to load my data to this visual. Perhaps it will find me something new, okay? And this is a crucial thing. Try to use visuals. It's a trial and error. Most likely, you will find nothing. But once every week, one of those custom visuals will suddenly reveal a new truth to your data. So why not using it, right? That you're improving your chance as a data catalyst to gain new insights and bring them to your organization. Okay. Another opportunity is using the actual custom visual R's. So now, some of you or some of you know data scientists, right? You can learn 10 years and know all kinds of voodoo things about data to create amazing things. Now, yeah, not everyone have the time to go through this ordeal. And some of you are familiar also with R. But for many others, I don't need it because I can just use custom visuals in Power BI. And for example, in this specific case, you can see in this frame here, this is a custom visual just to show you how it is created so easily. So let's say I have here a line chart, and this specific data set was the Hawaii visitors, the tourists in Hawaii, that was published also as part of the Power BI challenge for this event. So just as a nice example, you can see when I edit the queries, the actual data set is relatively, you see the data set is relatively very challenging, so you can use the query editor to transform it to meet your specific requirements. And in our case, if I will just take the number of visitors and the date, okay, so you see I have this specific graph. Now, if I will just change this graph, let's import a visual, just a second. And let's take time series composition. Okay, so now I can turn this one into, okay, so you can see the first trend line is the actual trend line that we have. The second line show you the repeatedness, the periodicity of your data. So it's a great way for you to understand data in ways. Let me just show you as an example. If I will take, in this specific case, you can see we have the islands in Hawaii. When I click on Kauai, sorry, I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly. I haven't been in Hawaii yet. But you can see this is the actual trend line, and you have a lot of periodicity in your data. But actually, the data, removing all the patterns of the time series, this is actually what happened in terms of the trends, the real trends that are not related to some seasonal activity. So you can actually see here the worldwide economical crisis in 2008, sorry, and how from that year there was a real decline in tourism activity. And again, those specific elements, without understanding how, I can just plug the custom visual and play with the data to find new insights. Okay, let's go to the last example that I wanted to share with you. It's this one. What if scenarios, okay? With a moderate user in Power BI that know DAX, how many of you have heard about disconnected slicers, disconnected tables in Power BI? Okay, great. So in this example, I have some data about Star Wars characters, and I have their weight and height, and I want to calculate the BMI, the body mass index, to gain more insight. So you can see in this case, you see that robots are relatively heavy and short, but it's not fair because they are made of metal, right? So we need a different BMI calculation for robots, perhaps, when we want to evaluate our new global BMI index for the universe, right? So here in this example, you can just create this disconnected table. This specific disconnected table doesn't need to be part of your data model, and you just load it into this visual. You see this specific visual, a slicer, just have a combination of numbers. I created a table manually with all those numbers. Now imagine that I want only for robots to calculate, to add a factor in the calculation of BMI. So now I can combine with a measure those different calculations. And just as an example, you see when I unselect everything, all the options that I have in this disconnected table are shown for robots. So now I can select which factor I want to use in a kind of a what-if scenario, okay? And last important thing about it, and it's more about visualization, to gain insight, you also need to get a proper use of your real estate in the report canvas. It's not for perhaps old ways of showing reports and just with a PDF to many C-level executives in every month. That's not a way to gain insight. It's a way to control the company. But to gain insight, you need an experience, and you need the real estate of the report, right? So here in this example, I'm using the real estate to switch between mass, height, and BMI. Instead of having 3 different visuals, I can control my report. So I have 3 different measures, and instead of showing them in one visual, I want one time to look about BMI and another time on mass or height, so I can do these specific flips. Okay, so there are many more examples that I'm afraid that I don't have enough time to show, But I think at this stage, since we are out of time, I'm staying here or outside to answer any question that you have, and I will also share on my blog most of the reports so you can start using. There are tons of other examples how to improve the real estate in your report and highlight specific elements. And I'm here to answer any question. Feel free also to take, if you need some business cards, to send me email with technical questions. I will be glad to help. Thank you.